Good morning, everybody. This is Uncle Winnie. I'm here in McAllen, Texas with Peggy Miller Sterling. Today is Friday the 17th, 2021. We're going to chat a little family history here. So Peggy, just take it away.
Okay, thanks, Winnie. I want to tell a story about Mom in her kitchen at the new house. When our new house was built, you guys were little bitty kids. Pete's a baby. By the time we moved, Mom was just home from the hospital after terrible surgery and her inability to take care of her new baby. For a long time, the sisters were his mother. So we helped raise each other, and now we're in a big house where Mom has a big kitchen, big pantry, stove that was butane to cook on, big double sink, running water, 2 bathrooms, 3 bedrooms. We call the rooms bunkhouses, you know. The boys had their bunk room. The girls had their room where the beds were reclaimed bunk beds from the United States Army. World War II is now over. So we have our house furnished by used Army furniture. It's wonderful. Frank Rising did that for us. But Mom was this extraordinary cook. She cooked a combination of foods from Iowa, full of corn and gravy, and so she had her methods. She moved to Edinburgh at age 12. She was born in 1904. She's 12 years old, and there's Pancho Villa raiding cattle across the border when she comes to Edinburgh to live with her mother and father and brothers and sisters. Her youngest brother, Joe, is born when she is 15 years old, having lived in Edinburgh for 3 years. My mother helped raise Joe. There are all these pictures of Joe Heacock with his little mother, which is Mom, who's 15 years old. So Mom takes up this cooking because Grandma Heacock adopts a Mexican way of cooking. She learns this, and they cook on outside fires, and she makes these wonderful tortillas. Grandma Heacock is grinding her own wheat for flour that she makes this bread. She gives you apples to eat from school, and you're to eat everything on the apple but the stem. So she has this unusual way of eating that her surgeon brother is teaching her. If you want to keep your family well fed, this is how you do it. So she uses his method of cooking for her family. So Mom grows up with this kind of bicultural way of creating food. So my mom can make soup, and she tears up tortillas and throws in it. So I know about tortilla soup long before anybody ever serves it, because that's Mom's style. She has this little pepper that she keeps in vinegar in a salt shaker, which is filled with chili piquin peppers. Every time she sautés fresh spinach, it is sprinkled with pickled pepper juice. I mean, we're growing up with very different culture of eating. Lots of Mexican. You know, for every slumber party, Dorothy Lee makes enchiladas, huge pans of enchilada, cheese liberally used, and the boys would come out to see the girls during a party, a sleepover party, where Dad would get up in the morning and make fresh pancakes for the girls, and Dorothy's feeding everybody enchiladas, and the boys are flocking out there. The girls won't miss a time to come to the ranch. So when they get up in the morning and have their pancakes, Dorothy starts saddling horses and they all go for a horseback ride. She has to teach them how to duck before they hit a limb on a tree so they don't get knocked off. We were having the best time of our lives because we were kind of back together as a family, as Winnie says, you know, so we had kind of been living with grandparents and aunts helping raise us. So because our country house was 1 bedroom, there were 9 kids. So we were kind of spread out, being raised by family who loved us. We were all okay, but we weren't one family. So in our new big house in the country, we had all this wild freedoms of riding horses and, you know, all this great life that we had not had before. But my little brothers and sisters don't know all these stories. So this story is really a story about Mom's operation in the kitchen, because she cooked for Dad completely different than she did for us. She would fix a tray of food to take to the field. Her tray was a big white dishpan. It was covered with immaculately clean flour sack dish towels. So the dish towels acted as napkins and, you know, to cover used plates when the food was gone. And in her big tray of food for Dad, she made things like rolled, it was kind of a skirt steak kind of steak, thin and pounded out. And she would make a stuffing, and she would roll it all up with twine so it's perfectly rolled. I never saw my mother do that for us. But here's this perfect little steak that she would deliver to her husband. She has sauteed it till it's brown and then steamed it very gently until it was all cooked through perfectly. She took him the whole steak. Stuffed flank steak is what it was. Then she would have a big bowl of pickled fresh beets, always a favorite. And then whatever fresh vegetable Dad was growing in the field. It could be sweet corn. It could be black-eyed peas from a neighbor who left off a bushel at our doorstep. But it was always something, and always a big plate of sliced tomatoes. So she took him this great food with huge quarts of cold iced tea. And so it was lunch to die for that she fed him with. And I watched her prepare this awesome food, and she personally took it to the field. Dad would get up in the morning at 4 o'clock and left the house immediately. He would come back later after the kids got on the school bus to have some coffee and something to eat. Mom was there to prepare that for him. We were not there. So we were catching the school bus in the dew, and back then we had lots of cold mornings. So the pastures are now brown from cold weather. And we're going to school in the dew, where your curls, if you had tried to have them, were now flat. By the time you got to school, your hair was wet. So we had to catch the school bus because there was no other transportation. And of course, if you wanted to miss the school bus, there was the big canal. I mean, a canal, not the big canal, by the school bus. And Bruce could go ahead and just jump in and say, well, gosh, I'm going to have to not go to school today. Bye, kids. And he'd go off to play his day with the neighborhood little brown kids up and down the block. Whatever he did, our folks never knew. So we were punctually catching the bus and doing our lessons, and Bruce, with his great brains, was frittering away his life. He didn't start studying until he was a junior in high school. That's another story I need to tell. But anyway, we had our ranch life that I knew, and then the little kids, they didn't know about their mother making this great food in the kitchen. She had started having really bad health after Pete was born. She was in ill health basically the rest of her life because she was not only growing Pete, she was growing a tumor. When they were able to remove it, it was the size of a grapefruit. From that time on, my mother was always sick. And that started with this tumor growing as well as Pete. Very hard on my mom's. She had air conditioning in her room. She had the only room in the house with air conditioning. She was too sick to leave it. And so the girls took over the cooking for the family, making these spectacular meals. When Mom was able to get to the piano, she would come up with all our music for our trio girls and singing. So we would sing harmonizing our new music as we prepared dinner. At least 2 nights a week she would play for us and we'd learn new music. So we were very busy with our life story. But my little brothers and sisters don't know know my parents the way I knew them. So I'm telling you, my mom was fabulous in the kitchen. She did Midwestern cooking, fresh food. She did South Texas cooking, fresh tortillas. The days when she was feeling good, she would make flour tortillas in this high stack. I can still see her hands making flour tortillas. She was a genius at putting together. She would slap this dough that she had made with warm water and her special masa. And she would slap it in her hands and turn it into this perfect ball, all of them the same size. They are now resting in this big dish pan to be made and rolled into flour tortillas. And it was magnificent watching her. They had to bloom for a while. After they were ready, she would roll them out, quickly put them on her masteca this iron griddle that she made tortillas on. And she would quickly cook them on each side till they were brown and bubbly. And when we would get home from school and see a stack of fresh tortillas just made for us getting off the school bus, we would devour them with homemade butter. And we were on high. We ate every tortilla she had made. There must have been like 3 dozen. And they were gone in a heartbeat. We just feasted on this perfect food from school where we always came home starving. And so when Mom was in the kitchen, she was spectacular. She always kept a bubbling pot of pinto beans and special terrible white rainbow sandwich bread in the freezer. That was for anybody who came knocking on her door that needed something to eat. These people were little men, one at a time, begging for work and begging for food. And Mom would always give them a steaming bowl of these wonderful beans, and she would break this sandwich bread that the Mexicans really loved. It was white. It probably had a non-nutrition value at all. But she would break a loaf of this bread in half and give them a big half loaf of bread to eat on as they went on their way. They were full, they were happy, and Mom asked them if they would go ahead and chop wood for her. They all had dignity. They all chopped her wood for the fireplace, and then Mom would say, "Okay, please go on your way." And they were well fed. They had paid for their food, because my mom wanted them to be honorable people. Stand up, they were strong enough to chop wood, go find a job and take care of yourself. And that was the message she gave everyone coming through her backyard, front yard, actually. They ate under the hackberry tree in the front yard in these big enamel bowls that Mom had for them to eat their beans. Big spoons, not little normal teaspoons, but big serving spoons. And they would bring their bowls to the door and she would ask them to chop wood. It was so dignified and such a graceful way to take care of people. My mom was really a missionary. She always wrote to a missionary in Africa or wherever they were. They had grown up together in Iowa, and she took care of her missionary. She would send her nickels and dimes and quarters. It was amazing. So that was my mother that you never knew.
Wow, Peggy, thank you so very much. I always learn something new every time you give one of these talks, so let's keep going, but I'm going to
Okay.
stop this one. We'll start another one.